The strange princess entered the room without being seen and was surprised to find a stranger. Princess Zixara took a deep breath and stepped through the metal wall of the research station. Her body became like smoke, passing through the thick steel as if it was made of air. This was her gift, her curse, and her secret weapon all at once. In the language of her people, the crystalline dominion, she was called a phase walker, one who could move between the solid and the spirit world. The station was old, very old. It floated in the empty space around the dead planet Kepler-4 to be like a sleeping giant. Her sensors had told her it was empty, abandoned for over 300 years. That was why she had come here alone. This place held the memories of her ancestors. The great civilization that once ruled this part of the galaxy. As she made her body solid again, Zixara looked around the dark hallway. Emergency lights blinked red in the darkness. The air was stale but breathable. Her crystal blue skin glowed softly in the dim light, and her large silver eyes adjusted quickly to see in the shadows. Everything looked exactly as she expected, empty and forgotten. She moved quietly through the corridors, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. The walls were covered with symbols and writings in the old language of her people. Her heart felt heavy as she read them. These were the words of the ancients, the ones who built this station before the Great Plague came and destroyed almost everything. Zixara had been coming to places like this for years, trying to learn about her people's past. Most of her kind had forgotten the old ways. They were too busy trying to survive in a galaxy that saw them as strange and exotic, not as the children of a once great empire. She turned the corner and stopped. There was light coming from one of the research rooms ahead, real light, not the emergency systems. Her heart began to beat faster. Someone was here, someone who should not be here. Moving carefully, she made herself invisible again and floated through the wall. What she saw inside the room made her stop and stare in complete surprise. A human woman sat at a large table covered with ancient artifacts. She had dark hair tied back in a simple style and wore practical clothes that were dusty from work around her. Were dozens of small objects, crystal tablets, metal tools, and carved stones that Zixara recognized as sacred items from her people's history. But what shocked the princess most was how the human was treating these precious things. She was not throwing them into bags or scanning them for valuable materials, like most treasure hunters would do. Instead, she was cleaning each item with tiny brushes, taking detailed pictures, and writing careful notes in a small computer. Zixara watched as the human picked up a crystal tablet covered in the old writing. The woman's eyes showed deep respect as she studied the symbols. She handled it like it was made of the most delicate glass, turning it slowly and taking pictures of every side. Temperature stable at 23 degrees, the human said quietly to herself. As she worked, humidity at 45%, perfect conditions for preservation. She placed the tablet in a special container filled with soft material that would protect it from damage. The princess had never seen anything like this. In all her years of exploring old sites, she had only found them after raiders had already stolen everything valuable. She had never seen someone treat her people's artifacts with such care and respect. The human woman stood up and stretched her back. As she turned around, her eyes met Zixara's invisible form. But something impossible happened. The human seemed to see her. "I know someone is there," the woman said calmly. "I can feel you watching me. Please, don't be afraid. I'm not here to steal anything." Zixara was so surprised that she forgot to stay invisible. Her body became solid again, and she appeared in the middle of the room like a ghost becoming real. The human should have screamed or run away or reached for a weapon. Instead, she smiled. "Hello," the woman said. "My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez. I'm an archaeologist from Earth. Are you one of the crystalline people? These artifacts belong to your civilization, don't they?" Zixara stared at her, unable to speak. No one had ever asked her that question before. No one had ever cared about what the artifacts meant to her people. Yes, Zixara finally managed to say. Her voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am Princess Zixara of the Crystalline Dominion. These are the sacred objects of my ancestors. Elena's face lit up with excitement, but it was not the greedy excitement of someone who had found treasure. It was the joy of someone who loved learning about the past. This is incredible, Elena said. I've been studying your people's culture for years, but I've never met someone who could tell me what these symbols actually mean. Would you? Would you be willing to help me understand them? She gestured to the table full of artifacts. I've been working here for 6 months, trying to preserve everything before the salvage companies find this place. I want to make sure your people's history is saved and respected. Zixar looked at the human woman with wonder. Here was someone from a species she had barely heard of, working alone in the darkness of space to protect the memory of people who were not even her own. You want to save our history? Zixar asked. But why? What do you gain from this? Elena walked over to a small heating unit and poured hot brown liquid into 2 cups. She offered one to Zixara. Coffee, she explained, and I don't gain anything, except knowledge. On Earth, we believe that every civilization's story deserves to be remembered. When we lose history, we lose part of what makes us who we are. Zixara took the cup and felt its warmth in her hands. The smell was strange but pleasant as she looked around the room at her people's carefully preserved artifacts. She felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Hope. For the first time in her life, she had found someone who understood that the past was not just old things to be sold or forgotten. It was the foundation upon which the future could be built. I will help you, Zixara said quietly, and perhaps you can help me understand why a human would care so much about people she has never met. Elena smiled and raised her coffee cup. To understanding each other, she said. Zixara raised her cup as well. To remembering the past, she replied, neither of them knew that their meeting would change the galaxy forever. Over the next few hours, Zixara and Elena sat together at the table covered with ancient artifacts. The princess had never talked so much in her entire life. For the first time, someone actually wanted to hear about her people's history. This symbol here, Zixara said, pointing to a carved crystal tablet, means eternal memory. My ancestors believed that as long as someone remembered their stories, they would never truly die. Elena carefully wrote down every word in her computer. That's beautiful, she said. On Earth, we have a similar saying. We believe that people live on through the stories we tell about them. Zixara touched the tablet gently. Her crystal blue skin seemed to glow brighter when she was near the ancient objects. This station was built during the golden age of our civilization. We call it Sanctuary of Wisdom. It was one of hundreds of research centers scattered across the galaxy. Hundreds? Elena asked, looking up from her notes. What happened to them all? The princess's silver eyes became sad. She was quiet for a long moment before she spoke again. The Great Plague came from the void between stars. It was not like any disease our scientists had ever seen. It attacked our life force itself, the energy that flows through all crystalline people. Elena put down her pen and listened carefully. She could see the pain in Zixara's face. Within 50 years, 99% of our people were gone, Zixara continued. The survivors were scattered across distant worlds. Most of our knowledge was lost. Our great cities became empty ruins. The galaxy forgot that we were once a mighty civilization. How many of your people are left now? Elena asked softly. Perhaps 1 million, maybe less. We live in small groups on different planets. Most of us have never seen places like this station. We are treated like curiosities now. Strange beings with unusual powers. Other species collect. Use us like rare pets or hire us as entertainers. Elena felt anger rise in her chest. That's terrible. No civilization should be reduced to that. Zixara looked surprised. You feel anger for people you have never met. Of course I do, Elena said. On Earth, we have many different cultures and peoples. We learned long ago that when we lose one culture, we all become poor. Every civilization has something unique to teach the galaxy. The princess picked up another artifact, a small metal device covered in intricate patterns. This is a memory crystal reader. My people used to store their thoughts and experiences in these crystals, so that future generations could learn from them. Elena examined the device carefully without touching it. Does it still work? I don't know. Most of our technology died with our people. I have been searching for places like this station, hoping to find working devices that might contain the memories of my ancestors. What would you do if you found those memories? Elena asked. I would share them with my people. Most young crystalline have never heard the true stories of our past. They think we have always been weak and scattered. They don't know that we once built wonders that could make stars dance. Elena stood up and walked to a wall covered with star charts. These maps show trade routes that connected hundreds of worlds. She said, Your people must have been incredible. Explorers and builders. Yes, Zixara said, joining her at the wall. We brought peace to many systems. We shared our knowledge freely with other species. We believed that the galaxy was better when everyone worked together. That sounds like something humanity believes too, Elena said. We're still learning, but we try to help other species preserve their cultures and histories. Zixara turned to look at the human woman. Why do humans care so much about the past? Elena thought for a moment. Because we know what it feels like to almost lose everything. Earth has seen many civilizations rise and fall. We've learned that when we forget where we came from, we make the same mistakes over and over again. She pointed to her computer, which contained hundreds of files about different alien cultures. I've spent my life studying the history of other species. Every culture I learn about makes humanity better. We gain new ways of thinking, new solutions to old problems. You study other peoples to help your own people? Zixara asked. We study other peoples because their stories matter, Elena corrected gently. Knowledge shouldn't belong to just one species. It should be shared so that everyone can learn and grow. The princess felt something warm in her chest that she had never experienced before. Hope was a feeling that the crystalline people had almost forgotten. Elena, she said quietly, would you like to see something special? The human nodded eagerly. Zixara walked to what looked like a blank wall. She placed her hand on a small crystal panel, and suddenly the wall came alive with light. Images appeared in the air, moving pictures of the station as it had been centuries ago. Elena gasped in wonder. She saw crystalline people working together, their skin glowing with different colors as they shared knowledge through touch. She saw great ships arriving from distant stars, bringing scholars and artists from across the galaxy. This is the memory of the station itself, Zixara explained. Some of our technology could store experiences in the walls and floors. I discovered it by accident during my first visit here. This is incredible, Elena whispered. These recordings could help restore so much of your people's lost history. Suddenly, both women heard a sound that made their hearts stop. It was the deep hum of large ships approaching the station. Elena quickly checked her sensors and her face went pale. We have company, she said. 3 heavy salvage ships, consortium raiders. Zixara's skin turned a darker blue, a sign of fear among her people. They must have tracked my ship here. The consortium strips sites like this for valuable materials. They don't care about history or culture. How long do we have? Elena asked, already beginning to pack the most important artifacts into protective containers. Maybe an hour before they dock, Zixara replied. But Elena, you don't understand. The consortium doesn't take prisoners. They eliminate anyone who might interfere with their operations. Elena stopped packing and looked directly at the princess. Then we need to make sure they don't succeed. Zixara asked in surprise. You said your ancestors believed in eternal memory, Elena said firmly. Well, I believe that some things are worth fighting for. This station and everything it contains is one of those things. The sound of the approaching ships grew louder. Both women knew that their peaceful time of discovery was over. The real test was about to begin. The first consortium ship docked with the station with a loud clang that shook the walls. Elena and Zixara could hear heavy boots marching through the corridors. The raiders were coming fast, and they meant business. We need to move, Zixara whispered. These people are dangerous. They have weapons and armor. We should run while we still can. But Elena was not moving toward the exit. Instead, she was studying the ancient control panels on the walls. Zixara You said this station had defensive systems. Can you help me activate them, Elena? That technology is hundreds of years old. Even if it still works, we don't know how to use it safely. We have to try, Elena said firmly. I didn't come this far to watch raiders destroy your people's history. The princess looked at the human woman with amazement. Elena was scared. Anyone could see that. But she was not running away. She was choosing to fight for something that was not even her own. The main control room is 3 levels down, Zixara said. But the raiders will be between us and there. Elena grabbed her archaeological kit and started pulling out tools. She held up a sonic excavator, a device used for carefully removing dirt from delicate artifacts. This creates focused sound waves. What happens if we turn up the power? It could shatter crystal or crack metal, Zixara said, understanding Elena's idea. But Elena, you're an archaeologist, not a soldier. Today I'm both, Elena replied. She began adjusting the settings on several of her tools. My people have a saying, when something matters enough, ordinary people do extraordinary things. They heard voices getting closer. The raiders were searching room by room, looking for anything valuable. Elena quickly packed the most important artifacts into a protective case. While Zixara studied the wall displays, I can phase us both through the floors, Zixara said. But it will be difficult to carry everything. Leave the equipment. Take only the memory crystals and the most sacred items, Elena decided quickly. We can replace tools, but we can't replace history. The princess took Elena's hand and concentrated. It felt strange to the human as her body became light and misty. Together, they sank through the floor like ghosts, carrying the precious artifacts with them. They appeared in a maintenance corridor 1 level down. Elena's body became solid again, and she felt dizzy for a moment. That's incredible, she whispered. How do you do that? My people can shift between the physical and energy states, Zixara explained as they moved quietly through the narrow passage. But it takes great concentration, especially with another person. Above them, they heard angry voices. The raiders had found the research room empty and were not happy about it. Scanner shows life signs moving through the station. A rough voice shouted. Find them and find them now. Elena and Zixara reached the main control room. It was a large space filled with crystal panels and holographic displays. Most of the systems were dark, but some still glowed with soft blue light. This is the heart of the station, Zixara said. But I don't know how to activate the defenses. That knowledge was lost with my ancestors. Elena approached the control panels and began studying the symbols. You taught me some of these symbols upstairs. This one means protection, and this one means barrier. Maybe if we combine them. She started pressing crystal buttons in different patterns, while Zixara watched the corridor for raiders. After several tries, Elena found a combination. That made the panels light up brighter. Warning, a voice said in the ancient crystalline language. Intruders detected. Defensive protocols available. It's working, Zixara said excitedly. The station's intelligence system is still active. Elena continued working with the controls, using logic and patience instead of force. This was exactly like solving an archaeological puzzle, except the stakes were much higher. Suddenly, the station came alive around them. Energy barriers appeared in the corridors, trapping some of the raiders in dead-end passages. Gravity wells activated in key areas, making it impossible for the intruders to move freely. What's happening? They heard raiders shouting over the communication systems. The station is fighting back. But Elena was not finished. She had found something else in the control systems, the station's communication array. Her fingers moved quickly over the crystal panels. What are you doing? Zixara asked. Calling for help, Elena replied, and letting the galaxy know what's happening here. She activated a broad-spectrum transmission that would reach every inhabited system within 50 light years. Her voice went out across space, calm but urgent. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez calling from the Crystalline Research Station at Kepler 44b. We are preserving irreplaceable historical artifacts belonging to the Crystalline Dominion. Corporate raiders are attempting to destroy this heritage site. For profit, We request assistance from anyone who believes that history belongs to all of us." The raiders heard the transmission and became furious. They began trying to cut through the energy barriers with plasma torches. "They're breaking through the defenses," Zixara warned. Elena thought quickly. She grabbed her sonic excavator and adjusted its frequency to match the station's crystal matrix. "Zixara, can you phase into the walls and plant these devices near?" The raiders, what will they do? "Create harmonic vibrations that will make their equipment malfunction. It won't hurt them, but it will slow them down." The princess took the modified tools and disappeared into the wall. Elena watched on the monitors as Zixara moved like a ghost through the station structure, placing the devices exactly where they would do the most good. When Zixara returned, Elena activated the sonic disruptors immediately. They heard cursing and confusion from the raiders as their weapons stopped working, and their armor became uncomfortably hot. "Brilliant," Zixara said with admiration. "You turn archaeological tools into defensive weapons. Humans are good at improvising." Elena said with a small smile, "We use whatever we have to protect what matters." The station's defenses held for now, but both women knew it was only temporary. The raiders would eventually find a way through or call for reinforcements. But Elena's message was already spreading across the galaxy, carried by the fastest communication networks in known space. Her words about protecting heritage and preserving history for all people were being heard on hundreds of worlds. "Do you think anyone will come?" Zixara asked. Elena looked at the ancient symbols on the control panels, thinking about all the civilizations that had risen and fallen throughout galactic history. "Someone will come," she said with quiet confidence. "Good people always answer the call when heritage is threatened. That's what makes civilization worth defending." Outside, more consortium ships were arriving, but inside the station, too unlikely. Friends had turned an ancient crystalline sanctuary into a fortress that would not fall easily. The real battle was just beginning. Elena's message traveled across the galaxy faster than she had ever imagined possible. Within hours, her call for help was being broadcast on thousands of worlds. But what happened next surprised everyone, including Elena herself. The first response came from Dr. Marcus Chen on the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri. He was Elena's former teacher and had been studying ancient Andromedan ruins for 20 years. His message was simple but powerful. "Elena, we're coming. No one destroys history on our watch." But Marcus was not alone. Within 6 hours of Elena's original broadcast, over 50 human research teams across the galaxy had responded. They were archaeologists, historians, and cultural preservation experts. None of them were soldiers, but all of them understood what Elena was fighting for. On the station, Elena and Zixara watched in amazement as the communication panel lit up with incoming messages. Species they had never heard of were expressing support for their cause. "Look at this," Elena said, reading the messages as they appeared. The Verdian Council just passed an emergency resolution condemning the consortium's actions. The Silicon Collective is offering technical support. Even the warrior clans of Rigel are sending a message of solidarity. Zixara stared at the screen in wonder. "I don't understand. Why do all these species care about our heritage site?" "Because it's not just about your heritage anymore," Elena explained. "It's about the principle that culture and history belong to everyone, not just to whoever has the biggest guns." The princess watched as more messages poured in. Many of them told similar stories: ancient sites destroyed by the consortium, artifacts stolen and sold to private collectors, entire civilizations reduced to footnotes in corporate profit reports. "This is incredible," Zixara whispered. "I thought we were alone in this." But the real surprise came when Elena received a priority message from Admiral Sarah Rodriguez. Of the human defense fleet, Elena had never met the admiral, but her reputation was known throughout human space as a fair and honorable leader. Dr. Vasquez, the admiral's holographic image, said, "Your message has reached the highest levels of human government. The Colonial Council has voted unanimously to support your mission. We're sending ships, but not to fight. We're coming to stand guard." Elena felt tears in her eyes. They're not coming to conquer or claim territory. They're coming to protect something that isn't even human outside the station. The consortium raiders were growing frustrated. Their attempts to break through the ancient defenses had failed, and now they were hearing reports of ships approaching from multiple directions. "Commander," one of the raiders reported, "we're picking up 17 different species ships heading this way. Some of them are armed. Should we call for reinforcements?" The consortium commander, a hard-faced man named Grizzluk, growled in anger. This was supposed to be a simple salvage operation. How did it turn into a galactic incident? His communications officer looked nervous. "Sir, the story is spreading through every news network in known space. They're calling it the Stand for Heritage. Public opinion is turning against us." Meanwhile, Elena's research network was doing something remarkable. Human archaeologists began sharing their own discoveries with species who had lost their heritage. Sites. Dr. Sarah Kim on Earth uploaded detailed scans of Altarian artifacts to help the survivors of that civilization rebuild their cultural identity. Professor James Wright shared his research on lost vegan poetry with scholars who thought their literature was gone forever. "Elena," Zixara said, watching the data streams, "your people are giving away knowledge that took them years to gather. Don't they want to keep it for themselves?" Elena smiled. "That's not how humans think about knowledge. We believe that information becomes more valuable when it's shared, not when it's hoarded." The first ships to arrive were not human. A small fleet of Verdian research vessels appeared at the edge of the system, followed by Silicon Collective drones carrying advanced scanning equipment. They didn't engage the consortium raiders, but their presence sent a clear message. Then came the moment that changed everything. Elena received a live communication request from someone she had never expected to hear from. Dr. Kami Okafor, the Director of Galactic Cultural Heritage for the United Species Council. "Dr. Vasquez," Dr. Okafor said when the connection was established, "what you're doing has inspired something extraordinary. The Council is calling an emergency session to discuss creating a permanent treaty for heritage protection." Elena could hardly believe what she was hearing. "A treaty?" "The Galactic Cultural Preservation Treaty," Dr. Okafor confirmed. "Your situation has shown us that we need laws to protect heritage sites from commercial exploitation. Many species have been waiting for someone to take a stand like this." Zixara grabbed Elena's arm in excitement. "Do you understand what this means? It means that what happened to my people's sites might never happen to anyone else. But the most emotional moment came when Elena received a message from a group she had never heard of, the Children of the Lost Worlds. These were survivors from civilizations that had been completely destroyed by various disasters over the centuries. They had formed a community dedicated to keeping their cultures alive through stories and traditions. Dr. Vasquez, their representative, said, "You have given us hope. For too long, we believed that when a civilization falls, its story dies with it. But you have shown us that there are people in the galaxy who care about preserving all stories, not just their own." Elena felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, but also a deep sense of purpose. She looked at Zixara, who was reading messages from crystalline communities across the galaxy. Many of them had never known that places like this station existed. "Elena," Zixara said softly, "my people are talking about coming together for the first time in centuries. They want to help preserve what's left of our heritage. This station could become the center of a crystalline cultural revival." Finally, the human defense fleet arrived. Admiral Rodriguez's flagship, the UES Harmony, dropped out of hyperspace along with 12 other vessels. But these ships took defensive positions around the station rather than aggressive ones. Toward the raiders, consortium vessels, Admiral Rodriguez's voice came over all communication channels. "You are interfering with the galactic heritage preservation effort. You have won our to withdraw from this system voluntarily." Commander Grizzluk knew when he was beaten, facing opposition from multiple species and terrible publicity. The consortium had no choice but to retreat. As the raider ships departed, Elena and Zixara stood together in the observation deck, watching the mixed fleet of ships from dozens of species forming a protective barrier round their station. "How did this happen?" Zixara asked in amazement. How did the people standing up for what's right turn into this? Elena put her hand on her friend's shoulder. Because sometimes, when you fight for something bigger than yourself, you discover that you're not fighting alone. There are good people everywhere, waiting for someone to show them that it's possible to make a difference. The galaxy had heard their call, and it had answered. 6 months later, Elena stood in the same room where she had first met Zixara. But everything had changed. The ancient research station now buzzed with activity as beings from dozens of species worked together to preserve and study the artifacts of the crystalline dominion. The consortium had officially withdrawn all claims to the station after facing galaxy-wide boycotts of their services. More importantly, the United Species Council had passed the Galactic Cultural Preservation Treaty by an overwhelming vote. The treaty made it illegal to destroy or steal heritage sites belonging to any civilization, no matter how small or scattered that civilization might be. Elena smiled as she watched a young crystalline scholar named Calyx carefully examining one of the memory crystals with Dr. Sarah Kim from Earth. The crystal contained the complete medical knowledge of the ancient crystalline civilization, information that could help restore the declining population of Zixara's people. The memory crystals contain genetic repair techniques that were lost during the Great Plague. Calyx explained excitedly to Dr. Kim, "If we can understand this knowledge, we might be able to reverse the damage that has kept our population so small. Our xenobiology team on Earth would be honored to help with the research," Dr. Kim replied. "We've learned so much from studying how different species adapt and survive. Your people's knowledge could help not just the crystalline, but many other species facing similar challenges." Elena felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she watched the collaboration. This was what she had always dreamed of. Different species working together to preserve and share knowledge instead of fighting over it. "Elena," Zixara called from across the room. The princess had changed too. She no longer hid in the shadows or spoke in whispers. As the official cultural heritage director for the Crystalline Dominion, she had found her voice and her purpose. "The Council of Elders from Chrysalis Prime just sent a message," Zixara continued, her silver eyes bright with excitement. "They want to establish 3 more heritage preservation centers, using the knowledge we've recovered here. For the first time in 300 years, scattered crystalline communities are working together." Elena joined her friend at the communication console. Over the past months, they have become true partners in running the station. Elena handled the archaeological and scientific aspects while Zixara provided the cultural and historical context that made their work meaningful. "That's wonderful news," Elena said. "Have you heard from the Andromedan survivors yet?" "Yes," Zixara replied, scrolling through messages. "They found the location of their lost homeworld using the star charts we helped them decipher. They're planning an expedition to recover their sacred artifacts." The success stories kept coming. The Verdian Council had established a new department dedicated to heritage preservation. The Silicon Collective had created advanced scanning technology that could preserve cultural sites in perfect digital detail. Even the warrior clans of Rigel had agreed to protect heritage sites instead of raiding them. But perhaps the most remarkable change was happening on Earth itself. Elena had received reports that humanity's approach to cultural preservation was inspiring changes in how they treated their own history. Ancient sites that had been threatened by development were now being protected. Indigenous cultures that had been overlooked were receiving new support and recognition. "Elena," Zixara said quietly, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had just left when you first saw me that day?" Elena considered the question seriously. "I think about it sometimes. The consortium would have stripped this place bare. Your people's history would have been lost forever. The treaty would never have been created, and my people would still be scattered and forgotten," Zixara added. "But you chose to stay and fight for something that wasn't even yours." "It became mine the moment I understood what it meant to you," Elena replied. "That's what humanity has learned over the centuries, that other people's stories become part of our story. When we choose to care about them." A new voice interrupted their conversation. "Excuse me, Director Vasquez, Director Zixara?" They turned to see Commander Lisa Park. the human military liaison who had been assigned to protect the station. We just received word that the final signatures have been collected for the treaty. It's now galactic law. Elena and Zixar looked at each other with joy. The Galactic Cultural Preservation Treaty was more than just a law. It was a promise that what had happened here would never be forgotten. There's more. Commander Park continued with a smile. The United Species Council wants to name this station as the first official galactic heritage site. They're proposing to call it the Vasquez Zixar Memorial Station. Memorial? Zixar asked in confusion. Not because anyone died, Commander Park laughed. Because this is where the idea of protecting everyone's heritage was born. They want future generations to remember what you two accomplished here. Elena felt overwhelmed by the honor, but also by the responsibility. We need to make sure this station becomes more than just a monument. It needs to be a living example of what cooperation can achieve. Over the following weeks, the station continued to transform. A crystalline cultural center was established in the Eastern Wing, where young people could learn the ancient arts and traditions. A multi-species research facility was built in the northern section, where scientists from different worlds worked together on projects that benefited everyone. The most moving moment came when a group of elderly crystalline arrived at the station. They were the last living beings who remembered the old ways from before the Great Plague. When they saw the memory crystal recordings of their ancestors, many of them wept with joy. I thought I would die before anyone would care about our stories again. One elderly crystalline named Zethara told Elena, "You have given my people something more precious than treasure. You have given us back our identity." Elena watched as Zethara taught young crystalline scholars the proper way to read the ancient symbols. Knowledge that had almost been lost forever was being passed to a new generation. As the day ended, Elena and Zixar stood together on the observation deck, looking out at the mixed fleet of ships that still protected the station. Human vessels worked alongside Verdian science ships, Silicon Collective drones, and even some former consortium captains who had switched sides to support the heritage preservation effort. Elena, Zixar said softly, "My ancestors believed that every action creates ripples that spread across the universe. When you chose to stay and fight for our heritage, you created ripples that have changed the entire galaxy." Elena put her arm around her friend's shoulders. "We created those ripples together. And the best part is, they're still spreading." In her final log entry that night, Elena wrote, "Today marks the official establishment of galactic heritage protection laws, but more than that. It marks the beginning of a new age where preservation matters more than profit, where cooperation matters more than conquest, and where every civilization's story is valued. We didn't just save one station. We saved the idea that the past belongs to everyone, and the future should honor what came before." The strange princess and the stranger had become the founders of a new galactic tradition, one that would protect the stories of countless civilizations for generations to come.